Some said they were too ugly. Some said, why on earth would you want to keep that? These controversial buildings are the Galloway buildings in downtown Bowling Green, and we'll tell you why they are so important here on Warren County Preserves. I'm Amy Bingham. At the corner of 6th and State are two buildings constructed of glazed yellow brick. They are the Galloway buildings, and they have an important story to tell about Bowling Green's automotive history. To better understand their story, we need to know what was happening both nationally and locally leading up to their construction.
Like most communities, the first vehicle in Bowling Green was really sort of a novelty item. Our first one here was in 1900. An electrician, J. Bland Farnsworth, constructed that. But of course, by the 1920s, there were quite a few more, and by 1930, countrywide, we had about 23 million vehicles on the roads. And at the beginning, the auto dealerships really shared space with livery stables, or they were trying to be in existing buildings down on Main Street. So as you can imagine, that really created a very congested Main Street. You had cars parked on the street. You had gas tanks right on the sidewalks in downtown areas. So these dealerships and these automotive-related industries started to move out on the feeder roads, or the highways leading into the downtowns, to sort of relieve some of that congestion. And that's when we got all those great roadside attractions like the diners and the motor courts, and of course the dealerships and gas stations, and things like Lost River Cave, the attractions that were there for people traveling with the automobile. Henry and Frank Galloway were two brothers who owned an auto dealership right off of the square on State Street. So in 1949, they were following that national trend to move out to out on these feeder roads. So they bought up two lots at the corner of State Street and 6th Avenue. And they built their auto dealership on one corner and a tractor dealership or a farm equipment dealership on the opposite corner. The design of these auto dealerships were really marketing machines. The idea was that you'd pull up to the traffic light and you'd be able to look in the shop window and see the beautiful cars for sale. The used cars were usually in a lot right out front. One of the things that auto manufacturers were really encouraging their dealerships to do was to build their buildings in new styles, to really say that what they, the product that they had was the best and the newest. So the Galloway brothers really took that to heart, and they built the dealership in an Art Moderne style, and they built the farm equipment building in an international style, which were both really new for the time. When the Galloway brothers were looking for an architect to design their buildings, they chose an architect here in Bowling Green who is very, very prolific, James Maurice Ingram. He built a lot of buildings, both residential and commercial, and a lot of schools here in Bowling Green and Warren County. And what I think is really interesting is that for the most part, his residential designs are fairly traditional designs, but for these two buildings, and for some of his other commercial buildings like the Honeycrust Bakery, he picked very new designs.
What was innovative in 1949 could be considered old-fashioned today, but several people have seen the value of keeping and restoring these buildings. The auto dealership at 601 State is now a valuable part of a redevelopment impetus, Circus Square. Cheryl Blaine, Executive Director of the Downtown Redevelopment Authority, explains how the plan evolved.
Our initial plan was to have a total block of green space, and we brought the staff architect from the Kentucky Heritage Council down, and DRA was able to purchase all of this land through Renaissance grants. And he looked and he said, Cheryl, as we're walking down the alley on Circus Square, he says, Cheryl, this building is historic and it contributes tremendously to your community. You can't tear this down. And I looked at him and I said, it's old, it has broken windows, no one's in it, it's yellow brick, it's ugly. What are we going to do with it? And he talked to me, and I think it was very interesting, and he said there are lots of wonderful things you can do with buildings like this. And he even talked about not just so much the history, but about how lots of buildings like this are made into contemporary apartments and all of these things that are used in the modern day, more contemporary styling. And I came back and I started looking, and I found some old plans of the building and found where it had neon signage, and I started getting a little excited. And then I looked at the opportunities that could actually, I guess, that we could do with this building. And I realized by saving this building and restoring it, it will make it beautiful. One of the things that we've really noticed across the nation and a lot of the conferences I've been to is people are looking at Automobile Alley, and that's what we call State and College Streets now, because was the north-south corridor from Nashville to Louisville. And I think as we bring back pieces of our history, in even that building, it's going to draw people downtown. One of the things that we did because of saving that building and because of Automobile Alley is in our Circus Square design, the fountain, we have it designed like the spoke of a wheel. And hopefully, I think one of the things we're going to draw on with this being Automobile Alley is in Circus Square, we would like to focus on some events in the future that maybe have that are automobile oriented. You know, like some of the antique dealership shows, different things like that, maybe a drive-in theater. I think that we need to bring that back to the community. Another thing that we're looking at doing is maybe putting some old photographs of an old Main Street exhibit that used to be at the Kentucky Museum and putting that in this building. So I really think that this building, along with the one that Booth Fire has, and a lot on down into the Shake Rag building, I think we've got some very significant contributors to our downtown that people will want to come see. And so when they come to Bowling Green, everything's not going to be looking like every other modern city in the United States. We have our own identity, and I think that's neat.
The Downtown Redevelopment Authority has the vision, but how do you make those plans a reality when dealing with the challenges of renovating an old building? When we return, Doug Gorman, owner of Booth Fire and Safety, will explain his renovation process of the Galloway Farm Equipment Building. The two Galloway buildings at the corner of 6th and State have great potential in the city's redevelopment plan. Business owner Doug Gorman has already taken the plunge and restored the Galloway Farm Equipment Building. But at first, he wasn't too sure he was up to the challenge.
Our choices were pretty limited, so we looked everywhere, thought about the building, looked all over town. And here I drive by this building. I've driven by it every day for 12 years. It was in terrible shape. It has not been well maintained. But kept looking, and thought maybe something could happen with this building. So when we took a tour and looked through it, I saw the possibilities, because it is a building that you have to come inside to see. It doesn't look like too much right now. From the outside it will when we're done. But the more I talked about it and the more we looked into it to see what would happen, it really started to hit, hey, maybe we could be a little different, and maybe we could have a show place, not just for our business, which is important for not only myself but our 14 employees, but maybe something that the rest of Bowling Green could take pride in. You know, this building was built in 1948. They do not make buildings like this anymore for a lot of reasons, but the construction, this has everything from steel to brick to glazed block to wood floors to 16-inch poured concrete floors. They just don't make them like this anymore. So the structure of the building is what we were interested in. The more I started talking with everyone about what could possibly happen, the more I got excited about it.
Doug Gorman took advantage of the 20% federal and 20% state tax credits for rehabilitation. They are important incentives that make some projects that otherwise wouldn't be feasible possible. When using the credits, the work that takes place must follow the Secretary of Interior's standards and be reviewed by the state and the National Park Service.
That whole process with the tax credits has been great. Everyone putting some good input. They all have the best interest of trying to restore it to the original part of it. that's been a very eye-opening experience. A lot of learning goes into it. Nothing's easy. Nothing that does as a reward is going to come easy for sure. So, but it's been a very, very worthwhile experience of saving the windows to making changes in the break room to make the window look like a roll-up garage door. So we had some great ideas architecturally, but yet those other people, the experts, get involved and say, why don't we do this? Let's do this to make it more historic. Do this, and some of the times I'm just trying to get it back in business and want to be open, and so we have some delays on trying to meet those criteria. But the end result, we're so happy with it that we wouldn't have done it any other way.
Doug Gorman gave us a tour of the facility during the rehabilitation.
This is the very front of the building, and this is the showroom. It's about 2,200 square feet. A couple interesting things about this. The ceiling, the joist system in here is very, very sturdy, so we're redoing that. It does have an existing tile floor, 8-inch by 8-inch tiles, a unique feature of it, but the one great thing about it is after 60 years, it's in great shape. We're going to clean that up and use the existing tile that's there. This showroom, of course, is all glass in the very front. It does have the front doors. It'll be eventually will be in the very front here, so that the main entrance to the building will be off of State Street. One interesting feature we are going to do and utilize, it had an overhead door. This originally was used for service to maybe bring tractors in from State Street. We're removing that door and going to replace it with a glass wall, basically, with a man door through the wall. The little courtyard out there, we're going to take that up, all that concrete up, and redo that and have an outdoor patio in that. So our break room will be in here with the view out that glass wall, and on the other side then we'll have some picnic tables, an area for our employees to enjoy the outside when it's nice weather and look outside when it's not nice weather. The rest of the building back here has a couple interesting features. It does have an awful lot of windows. As you can tell, there's 27 windows in this building. A lot of them are in this back. The windows over here are all taken out. The glass is taken out. We're going to re-glaze all of these windows. These windows will all be redone, as with the rest of the windows in the facility, to go back to the existing windows that were in 1948. They'll be a little heavier duty, but the frames are the existing ones. So at 60 years old, they're still in great shape. One interesting feature, back when it was a car lot, they had added later when they did maintenance on vehicles, they did add this trolley system, which is at the top of this I-beam going across, and we're going to use that trolley system. We do have some very large cylinders and other things that we'll be able to use, so we'll be able to put our automatic crane on that, and we're going to use that after we clean all that up. But we are excited about being able to use that trolley. We don't have one currently. This originally was a paint booth for the facility when it was Burke's Pontiac and other businesses, and it is a brick exterior, has a wooden roof on the inside, has a roll-up door. We're going to keep this existing structure here. It's going to be turned into a locker room and restroom facility for our service technicians. This is the upstairs of the building, and it's about 2,200 square feet. It was used at different times for, at one time was a parts room, but it was also offices. What we're using it for is we're using it for our service and sales people office. We've got a CAD room going up here. We actually are going to have a fitness area also for the guys to work out after work. But it's going to be our service and sales technicians will be up here and be able to do their work from in this room up here. We're going to have about 6 offices in the space, plus some open area and some open workroom up here. One nice feature about this, it has the existing hardwood floors. They're original, 60 years old. Of course, we're going to redo those and reuse all of the wood floor that's up here. The ceiling and everything has to be redone, but we are hoping to utilize not only the floors, but the wall has a very interesting brick with plaster, original part of the wall, but we're going to get that back down to the original brick. Using the different glass block and being able to get these windows back to what they are originally is exciting. The thing that we're looking forward to, there was originally 4 skylights, very large skylights in this building. 2 of them have been destroyed and they've just been covered up, and we're replacing those 2 to open it back up. And so the natural light that's in this building just from those 4 skylights is going to be pretty interesting, and they're all in areas that we have people working in, and so I think that makes a big difference for productivity and people's morale and their attitude, so we're looking forward to that too.
The necessary changes to the outside, like the inside, were respectful to the building's history.
We got a hold of the original architectural plans from 1948 when it was Galloway Tractor Company, and so we are reproducing those signs, the same type of sign and same material that they use. We're going to use that same on the awning around the front of the building. The biggest challenge is this building has this glazed brick, and it is inside, outside. There's no telling how many of these yellow glazed block bricks there are. Because of the repair problems, we've identified over 570 of the bricks that need to be replaced. And you know, I guess someone could come in and maybe cover over everything or do whatever, but to try to maintain the history of it, we want to replace those. We've been down here at nighttime, and when the bricks are shined up, and when we get them shined up, they do shine with the headlights and with the lights. The lighting scheme that we're going to use for the facility will make sure that it shines at nighttime.
When the first car headlights reflected off these buildings, it was big news in Bowling Green. Their designs and construction were so innovative, the Park City Daily News dedicated an entire section to the opening. Not unlike the present, when the Chamber of Commerce honored the reopening of Booth Fire and Safety with a well-attended ribbon cutting. It wasn't always an easy process, but definitely one that Doug and his employees are proud of.
There's two things that have happened. There's a whole lot of people that had a previous experience with the former Burks Pontiac, the former Galloway Motor Company was here, Kelly Printing that's been several different businesses. So they'd been through it before, and then they come through now and can't believe it. So we had those, but we've also had, I've had no less than 150 people just stop in wanting a tour, which is great. We're happy to do that. But at the same time, I've had complete strangers call just to thank us for saving this building, for not starting something new, but to make it look as good as it did in 1948 when it was constructed, and we're real proud of that.
You know, you can't pick and choose your history. That's what was here. It was here for a purpose. And if you restore them correctly and have the uses, I think, that are in today's modern society, you mix the old with the new, you learn to appreciate the character and who we are and where we've come from. And if you think about that, it's sort of like when you go to England. What do we love? Why do we love to go to Europe? It's the history. I think this is a perfect example of how it shows the community what you can do with an old, what you think is a building that needs to be destroyed, and how you can convert it and really make it into something that you're proud of.
I'm born and raised here in Bowling Green, and even before Mr. Kelly, I can remember coming down and my mouth watering over those Pontiac GTOs that used to sit out here.
We don't want anyone thinking we are in an old building. We want someone thinking we're in a historic building, and there is a difference.
There is a difference. Not every old building fits into our future. But there's no doubt our historic environments add to our quality of life and can even aid in economic development. Join us again for Warren County Preserves as we learn more about our past and our future.